What if I told you that Hamilton's 7th position was actually one of the best performances of his career? Why did nobody show you the true story behind that comeback from the Pittsburgh lane? The moment Hamilton started from the Pittsburgh lane, he was already facing a tactical mountain. That decision, forced by a last-minute adjustment in the SF-25 configuration, left it not only last, but out of traffic and the career's strategic rhythm. However, it was precisely in that adversity scenario where the purest Hamilton shone. In mixed track conditions with the still wet and sectors with irregular grip, the British did not limit himself to survive. He attacked. The impressive thing was not only the amount of positions won, but how he won them. In the first 15 race turns, Hamilton made overtaking at points of the circuit that even the most experienced would avoid the risk of tensile loss or blockages. In places like Blanchiment or the entrance to Les Combes, areas of very high speed and where each error is paid with an excursion to the gravel, Hamilton advanced with a millimeter accuracy. Each maneuver was executed with a confidence that is rarely seen under such unpredictable climatic conditions. And it was not improvised decisions. According to the telemetric data revealed by Ferrari engineers after the race, Hamilton was the pilot with the lowest average speed variation between wet and dry sectors. What this indicates is its ability to maintain a stable rhythm even when most of its rivals fluctuated between extreme conservatism and forced errors. Its traction map showed power delivery curves that brushed perfection, adapting its style to the most sliding areas of the SF-25, a car that until that weekend still had a very narrow performance window. But there is another revealing fact that went unnoticed. During the second stint of the race, Hamilton was the only pilot capable of maintaining competitive times without the need for the pressure of the tires and boxes to be adjusted. This means that he not only adapted his piloting to wear, but also anticipated how the intermediate compound would evolve on a track that drained slowly. While several pilots suffered from extreme graining or overheating, Hamilton kept the thermal margins inside the optimal window simply through the modulation of their driving style. That does not learn from one day to another. That is accumulated mastery for 2 decades to the highest level. The summary of all this is clear. It was not a simple comeback. It was a masterclass. The type of action that, if a debutante young man starred, the headlines would talk about the arrival of a superstar. But as is Hamilton, and as we have accustomed us to excellence, many chose to look the other way. And there lies the paradox. When the extraordinary becomes routine, the world stops paying attention. What happened in Spa-Francorchamps was not only a great performance by Hamilton. It was the confirmation of a deep technical inflection point for Ferrari, precisely executed in one of the most complex circuits of the calendar. The SF-25 had until then an inconstant car, with a very limited operational window, especially in mixed conditions and with high aerodynamic load. But that weekend the story changed. And the main head of that transformation was Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari arrived in Belgium with a capital update, one that had not been implemented even in previous careers. It was a complete reconfiguration of the rear train, especially focused on suspension geometry. Specifically, the upper arm of the suspension triangle was modified, relocating it lower and more advanced. At first glance, it may seem a minor technical detail, but in Formula One, a few millimeters in the arrangement of a suspension can translate into tenths of a second by return, changes in aerodynamic efficiency and critical variations in the car's ability to maintain contact with the asphalt. This redesign had a clear objective: reduce the anti-quat, a phenomenon that, in simple terms, generates resistance to the sinking of the car in the rear under acceleration. In the cars of this generation, reducing the anti-quat implies a better connection of the soil with the flat bottom of the car, allowing the soil effect to act with greater forcefulness and efficiency. In practice, this translates into more stability, more traction and less rebound. That is, just the problems that had persecuted Ferrari throughout the start of the season. According to the internal statements of the team, it was Hamilton who requested to maintain certain configurations that the engineers initially considered unstable. He argued that, although uncomfortable at the beginning, they offered a major margin of response to the limit in rapid curve. And he was right. In the high-speed sections of Spa such as Eau Rouge, Pujol and Blanchiment, the SF-25 with Hamilton at the wheel kept one step by curve 4.8% faster than the average recorded by Leclerc, and with less lateral wear of the rear tires. Because while the team still evaluated the data in the technical base, Hamilton had already interpreted how to adapt its pilot to squeeze the new dynamic equilibrium of the car. In the words of Frédéric Vasseur himself, what Lewis did that weekend was beyond piloting. He showed us how to interpret our car from a new perspective. That phrase, said by a technical director with years of experience, reveals the true impact of heptacampion. It was the catalyst to unlock the hidden potential of the SF-25. And no less relevant was his role off-track. Hamilton participated directly in technical briefings with aerodynamic and suspension engineers, providing feedback that, according to team sources, was crucial to redefine development priorities for the next phase of the season. This type of strategic involvement is what differentiates a talented pilot from a team leader. In that weekend, Lewis Hamilton not only ran, directed. Spa was the turning point because it was the first time that Hamilton showed in a clear and tangible way that he can lead Ferrari not only from the steering wheel, but from the technical strategy. The validation of the rear suspension, the upper race rhythm in changing conditions, the millimeter reading of the state of the asphalt, and its involvement in post-carrier adjustments are the clearest proof that its role is not symbolic. Hamilton is not there to finish races. It is there to redraw the technical and competitive architecture of the Scuderia. And that generates tension. Within the team, there are engineers who have traditionally worked aligned with Leclerc, who have shaped the car in their driving style. Deep braking, passing by aggressive curve, and an overloaded front balance. With the arrival of Hamilton, that design has been questioned. His style is different. It prefers a softer curve transition, a controlled traction at the output, and a more balanced car from shaft axis. Two opposite styles that require different setup philosophies, and the most critical, different development paths. And this is where the experience weighs. Hamilton does not need to convince with words. He already did it with facts. In Spa, regardless of the result at points, he exposed with his own performance that the path he proposes is more consistent, more scalable, and above all, more reliable for a 24-run season with extreme and rivals that do not forgive. Continue with the talent co-driver model, in which none really leads, or accept that to make the definitive leap you need to embrace a clear leadership. Hamilton offers something that Ferrari has not had since the era of Michael Schumacher. A competitive compass with a global vision, with the ability to unite departments, inspire decisions, and drag the entire team forward. The key will be on how Ferrari reacts in the next updates. If the pieces that arrive are oriented to the suggestions that Hamilton left in Spa, we will know that Maranello has chosen. If, on the contrary, the car is still anchored to the Leclerc style, then the battle is still open. The truth is that Spa exposed publicly, although subtle, a dispute that has been managing from the preseason tests. A struggle to define who will be Ferrari's true helm in this era. And while fans celebrate each overtaking, every fast lap, and every podium, within Ferrari a quieter war is fought. One that, if resolved in favor of the correct vision, can mean not only the return to the top, but the construction of a new gold cycle for the Scuderia. Because winning races is important, but building a champion team is something else. And Hamilton, from Spa, has already started building it. At the end of a career like the Spa-Francorchamps 2025, where the show is concentrated in the most visible overtaking and in the final positions, it is too easy to get caught in the superficial narrative. In a sport that becomes more dependent on the fast holder, the most viral image, or the most shared meme, the deep analysis, which really unravels what is happening behind the numbers, is increasingly scarce. And that is precisely the problem. Lewis Hamilton finished 7th. This is indicated by the papers. But if that figure is all that is extracted from your performance, then the true value of your career is being completely ignored. SPA was the perfect radiography of its adaptation capacity, its strategic reading in real time, and its technical sensitivity to translate track conditions into pilot decisions executed with surgical precision. But this is not about endiosar a pilot. It is about recognizing what a high-level performance is from an integral perspective. A vision that combines piloting, engineering, strategy, and leadership. Spa was not an isolated event. It was a signal. It was the first great confirmation that Hamilton has arrived in Ferrari not only to gain careers, but to establish a new work standard of demand, of mentality. A new competitive DNA that the team desperately needs if it wants to break the inertia of errors that has characterized its recent history. And that is why this race deserves to be remembered not by the number 7 that accompanies it, but for everything that built from the shadows. Spa was the beginning of a major narrative, one that could culminate in a historical season if Ferrari has the courage to follow the route he has drawn. Because the statistics are important, but the stories that hide behind them are the ones that really transform the teams, the pilots, and the championships. So now the question is not what Hamilton achieved in Spa. The real question is, who inside Ferrari understood it? Who was able to see beyond the final result and recognize that Sunday, in silence, the future of the Rampanti Cavallino began to be written? And now I invite you to think about it too. Are we facing the beginning of a new golden era for Ferrari led by Hamilton? Or is it an isolated spark that the team will let out for not understanding its true meaning?